I want to move on to the X-49 because I'm still kind of fuzzy on the difference between the X-39 and the X-49.
Okay, so it's actually very simple. X-39 elevates GHKCU, so that's copper peptide, which is based off of glycine. So it's a glycine, histidine, lysine peptide. X-49 elevates the other copper peptide, which is AHK. So that's an alanine, histidine, lysine. So the two are very different, even though it's just off by one amino acid. Glycine is ubiquitous. It's found throughout the entire body. And there's some good studies now that are showing the connection between glycine and increased lifespan. So there's a study, for example, that shows if you took glycine and N-acetylcysteine together, it extends lifespan by about 24%. That could be because it'll support glutathione and copper peptide levels, but that's yet to be determined. Alanine is not ubiquitous, and it's going to be found more, again, in tissues such as the bone, the skeletal muscle, the heart, the brain, the skin. And eventually, I think what we'll find is that alanine metabolism is closely associated with cognitive disorders like Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
So that I think would be a good area of research for people that are focused on that. What we found is that by elevating AHK, which declines with age, that we could induce and support muscle protein synthesis, so people could use this for improving athletic performance, among other things. We also found in an investigational study that elevating AHK improves bone density. So for women that are experiencing osteoporosis, osteopenia, that elevating AHK can stop bone loss and start to increase bone density over time.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So what do they not do? I'm just kidding. I think we should just keep discussing what they do.
Well, no, actually, that's actually quite a good question. The big missing link, I would say, which we will have room for in other products, is ultimately, can we reset 100% of the human genome back to a more youthful state? So, essentially, when we look at what happens with us as we age, we want to be able to control autophagy. We want to get rid of, the zombie cells that are part of the aging process. We want to keep the telomeres lengthened to protect us from disease and allow an infinite number of times our cells can divide. And we want to reset gene expression so that, we can essentially be 25 forever. Mm-hmm. So that to me is, where we go in the future. Instead of just having a third of the genome having our cells acting younger, we want 100% of the genome back to a youthful state.
Well, I think this is especially important too, given the toxic assaults via various angles that men and women deal with just living on this planet right now, right? And even those that live a very health conscious life, there is just toxins that we're bombarded with from every angle. So if we can sort of counteract that by helping facilitate our body's natural healing processes and other natural processes of the body to sort of balance that back out, to return some youthfulness back to us. Because you look at pictures of people from the 70s and the 60s at a beach, and everyone, regardless of age, is pretty fit and healthy. So if we can counteract the toxic assault to get back to that state, that's incredible. And then maybe move beyond that. So it's like the ultimate biohack.
Right. Human beings are more remarkable than they know. And I believe that what we will find in time is that God created us with the ability to adapt with any type of challenge that we're going to be faced with. Mm-hmm. And there's some remarkable facts about human beings that are not very well understood. Two of these, as an example, is that these light emissions that are coming from DNA are actually coming from the hydrogen bonds that hold DNA together. Wow. And you if you study this long enough, you're led with the conclusion that those pulses of coherent light are coming from the vacuum. And so what that means is that we have been designed to tap into energy beyond our time and space. And I'm not speaking esoterically. I'm speaking as a matter of physics. Yeah. I once had the opportunity to be in Hawaii and spend some time with Nassim Haramein, who's a relatively well-known physicist. And he had said to me, I calculated the amount of energy inside a human cell, and I found it was equivalent to that of a black hole. Of course, the scale is on a much, much smaller scale. So that's, why we don't see matter getting sucked in. Yeah. But the point of that is that there is an enormous amount of relative power inside the cell. And researchers like Abe Liebau found that even the mitochondria functions like a miniature cyclotron. So human beings, the molecular motors in human beings, it's incredibly sophisticated. And so what that means is that we have all of the tools inside of our bodies already to adapt to these chemical and physical man-made assaults.
Yeah. And that's how, we were talking about water fasting a little bit before this with respect to healing from the products that we'll talk about later. But that's how input, and that we can actually facilitate healing ourselves. And I think that like LifeWave is a step in that right direction, because there's no chemicals, there's no stimulants inside the product or that your body's receiving. It's using really your body's own light, sort of manipulating it in a way and reflecting it back to your body so that your body can aid its own healing process. So it's like a step to that understanding.
Exactly. It's, if you look at people that heal with energy, and I've had the privilege of meeting a number of them. And of course, historically, we know there were people like Jesus who, would heal. Of course, being the Son of God, he had that power. But people that weren't at that level have been able to, heal with their body. And I've seen some extraordinary demonstrations of this over the past 20 years. And so without question, spiritual energy is by far the most powerful form of healing. We could say the physically healing is at the lowest level. Emotional healing is a level up, and spiritual healing is another level up of power, above and beyond that. So I would completely agree with you that we have the ability to heal under the right conditions. And sometimes it's just nothing more than a change in mindset to allow that to happen.
Yeah. And you hear this happen so much with people who are, PhD researchers and scientists, where they come into their field sort of agnostic or atheistic, right? Like just pure atheists, don't believe in any sort of God, and sort of are stuck on the Darwinistic evolution trap of life, and that we came from nothing, which is also absurd in and of itself. But so many of them then sort of adopt, as they look deeper into their respective field, like, there's so much here that we cannot explain with our limited human capacity. There's just something here that is fundamentally spiritual. And that's where we see this sort of merging of physics, namely quantum physics, and understanding these deep, ancient, esoteric philosophies with regards to life and the nature of reality.